Samsung is doomed.
All right, Hangout is live. Oh, I should probably tweet.
Whoa, dude!
Whoa, yeah, this is a family show. Just let me know when I'm supposed to start yammering.
All right, so let me make a post here. Oh, wait, hashtag.
I must say, Red Hook's changed their bottles, and I think it's kind of fun, neat. But
okay.
Of course, for those listening to the audio, me holding up the bottle of Red Hook probably doesn't help.
That's good radio.
I have a face for radio.
Yeah, I think that someone else said that.
The other one is
your mom.
Well, the other thing is when you're congratulating the dad on his new child, it's like, and it's so wonderful that their looks take after their mother.
But so we all called not it.
I'm fine. I don't care anymore.
Mike, who's not here.
I never said not it. I just gave up. Like Poland in World War II.
Whoa!
I'm French, German, and Polish. What does that mean? I roll over not a lot at night when I sleep.
Ow.
That's an old one.
I know, but still.
I can tell you my other overused favorite one, which is, so, there you are, living in Poland. The Germans attack from one side, the Russians from the other. Who do you kill first?
And 5,
The
4,
Germans. Business before pleasure.
3.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Geek Life. Tonight we have a slightly truncated crew. There is no Melissa tonight, but we have Fess.
Hey.
We have Richard.
Hello.
Hello, Richard. This is Paul, of course, and we'll hopefully eventually get a mic. He's busy at the moment, but he might be on somewhere mid-show. This is episode 232 for the week of August 4th. Of course, as always, we were recording on August 5th, which, for those of us who care, that means we're about into the 100-year anniversary of the start of World War I as of yesterday, and as of 6 o'clock CDT, or Central Time, we're also 69 years after Enola Gay dropped a bomb on Hiroshima. That's your history lesson for the day.
And we all know how that war to end all wars thing turned out.
Yeah, let's follow up with the...
we didn't have any wars after that, yeah.
Yeah, let's follow up with the a couple decades later, Enola Gay dropped a bomb on Hiroshima. Yeah, that's really how World War I ended up.
And that didn't really end things
connections. Coal tar. Speaking of coal tar, video releases.
Video releases. Okay. Well, there were some. There's some stuff that's come out over the last 2 weeks. I'll do my level best to tell you the interesting ones. But before I get to that, I saw a news story today that just makes me weep in despair. The Hobbit: The Desolation of Smaug will be coming out on home video in November in an extended edition with 25 more minutes.
Yay!
I think they should rename it The Tedium of Smaug.
Joy!
It never ends.
I actually ate a hobbit hole.
What?
Okay.
I got nothing.
I'm not.
You have to have gone to Denny's at the right time. Denny's was doing their breakfast specials based off The Hobbit, and they had the audacity to call one of them the Hobbit Hole.
Was it like a?
It was an egg and a biscuit.
Yeah, that's okay.
But could you go there for second breakfast?
Yes, because breakfast is served all day long at Denny's.
That's where you were.
11Cs? Is it smog or smog? Smog?
It's smug.
He's a big effing dragon. It goes by whatever he wants.
All right.
I'm Biff.
There we go.
So what's the new stuff coming out? Let's see. Divergent shows up on DVD and Blu-ray if you're into that sort of thing.
Didn't that just come on theaters? Sorry.
Yeah, it did.
So that means...
or at least it feels like it, and that's coming out in everything. And Oculus is also showing up.
The 3D goggles on Blu-ray?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, go for it. Catalog titles are a little bit more interesting. There's some good, there's some bad, and there's some really ugly. Marty from 1955, starring Ernest Borgnine, is coming out on Blu-ray and DVD. I'm guessing this is the theatrical version if they've got a Blu-ray of it. The Phantom of the Paradise comes out on Blu-ray for the first time.
Which we have already. Wendy had pre-ordered it. It arrived at the house. She's very happy.
Today's Tuesday. You should have it.
Yep.
Do you remember in the 70s there was a big, long string of really awful Nature's Revenge movies? Grizzly was one of them from 1976. And
it's about beavers, right?
Exactly. And if you have no self-respect, you can own it on DVD. And speaking of 70s schlock, Blue Underground has a DVD set of all of the Blind Dead movies. These were made in Italy in the 70s, and the titles include Tombs of the Blind Dead, Night of the Blind Dead, Return of the Evil Dead, which has nothing to do with Bruce, The Ghost Galleon, and Night of the Seagulls, and that's all on DVD only.
I have a question. Are we really talking blind zombies?
Yes.
How do they find you?
They hear you.
Oh, they're hearing zombies.
At least that's what I've read. I have not seen the movies myself.
Don't make a noise.
We'll raise the cultural level here a little bit. Amazon has a 13-disc Blu-ray set called Herzog the Collection.
And Melissa's not here to squeal.
And Melissa's not here to squeal. It's
I'll
16 films on Blu-ray.
I have a birthday coming up.
The kicker is it's retailing for $160. And Amazon had it for a little over $100.
I have a birthday coming up in August.
Tell your wife. In the meantime, Bez seems to be wrestling with an earthquake.
I'm trying to have a camera positioned differently so it doesn't look like I have a constant bald spot all over my head. I don't know.
Sorry.
All right.
That's why I wear the hat. Though I have hair. Like the peach.
Sure you do. And that's why Mike, when he comes back, has a do-rag on. Or what is it, a bandana?
Mike's
I told him all he needs now is the hog with the ape hangers.
Of course, how do we know if Mike comes back if we've muted him?
I apparently have the control to, well, let's take a look. To turn on his, nope, he's not there. To turn on his video camera. So I can spy on him, I guess.
We'll just call you the NSA.
I don't know what I'm looking for.
You want to know what's on television? I'll tell you what's on television. Californication apparently got a 7th and final season. That's out on DVD.
I didn't know that was still running.
Didn't know it was still running. I didn't know this was a thing, but apparently there was a series of Saint movies made in the late 80s starring Simon Dutton, and that's now showing up on DVD.
I think I remember those.
Going retro, The Naked City, 4 volumes, all on DVD. That was a late 50s TV cop show. And finally, for the other fangirls to squee over, Twin Peaks comes to Blu-ray this week. Or it was last week. One of the two.
Proving that Mulder was a cross-dresser.
On Twin Peaks?
Duchovny, I thought it was Twin Peaks, where Duchovny shows up as a cross-dressing FBI agent. Like, for one episode.
And yet I have no problem believing that. Title of the week,
I want to believe.
You want to? Okay. I have some sympathy for Melissa. Title of the week is really getting difficult. There's just not a lot of good options out there anymore. It's like the direct has stopped showing up. Except for this, which I picked just for the overly specific nature of the title. Ancient Advanced Technology in Peru and Bolivia with David Hatcher Childress.
I like that they specified Peru and Bolivia, but not other parts of South America.
Yeah, there's...
Would that be Mayan, maybe? I'm trying to remember which ancient civilizations were centered in Peru.
It just reminds me of, I used to get this magazine on computer history, but it was very formal and academic, and one month there was an article that was titled, like, Computing in Malta, 1960 to 1970. And I'm thinking,
that sounds like an IEEE history magazine. I got for a while.
It was.
Yeah, okay. I used to subscribe to that, too. I loved it because it was so, like, they took really neat topics and just utterly made them dry.
And went on and on.
I do have a message from Melissa, who is currently box officing, and she's either box officing or attending Fringe Festival here in Minnesota, which is in its second week.
She'll tell us all about it on the next episode, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure, but she has something to say about it now. She says, so tired, because she kind of overscheduled herself and she's trying to get sleep in, so...
Oh, she never does that.
Sleep or overschedule herself. Sorry.
Yeah, but she's been letting me use her punch card for... Ooh. She's apparently got... Well, from what she said, because she had there's 11 punches on one volunteer card, she has at least earned 21, and she has 2 gold passes. But she's volunteering too much that she might not even be able to use all of that, which is the shame, I think. So I went to go. I went to go see. Well, she's doing PowerPoint karaoke, of which she has a couple more left. I think there's one on Friday and Saturday of this week still. In the evening. I think one's at 5 and Saturday's at 7. But and then we went to go see Jumping Jack Kerouac, which a bunch of people that even I know are in it. Wendy Bowlesby is hitting that up, basically taking writers and making them perform instead. So and that was pretty fun. It's a little bit of speaking by Wendy Bowlesby about some of the some of the writers that are in the show performing. And then it goes to like a dance number, but there's no lines. It's strictly dancing. It's storytelling through dancing, which is so it's very, very interesting. I was able to record that on video. So, and then I'm looking forward to seeing Top Gun the musical.
Yay!
I did manage to record the rehearsal of that, and I guess I'm going to be the video recorder for the actual shows when they pop up. When I can get to them, I think tomorrow and Saturday. I'm gonna go.
Mike's here.
Yay!
Oh, hey, Mike! Welcome to the world of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Why do you always do that? Haven't you ever heard of showmanship?
Yeah, I would do it. I would do it all the time. So let's see here. So movies. Comics sort of blends together. The Guardians of the Galaxy has come out, and everybody loves it. And there's a sequel already being in the works.
And it's made a crap load of money.
Yeah.
And Comic-Con, they announced their future lineup of movies. So for those who, like me, are waiting for the Inhumans, hopefully I will survive 10 years into the future.
That's almost just mean.
I just want to see Lockjaw on the screen. You know, that's just me.
But now you have a reason to exercise even more.
Yeah.
Who's the guy that plays Star-Lord? Is it Chris Plate?
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. I don't know. He's apparently an excellent person to interview. As I keep seeing like GIF sets of him going around where they take little snippets from his interviews, and he seems it's pretty awesome. It's like
I love the fact that on one of the interviews they have him French braid an intern's hair because I find out that he's actually really good at French braiding women's hair for no apparent reason. I mean, it's just one of those skills he has. Doesn't have a daughter. I think he does his wife's.
Well, it's like the. I think we lost Mike again. It's like instead of being the guy that goes to the party with the acoustic guitar.
Yep.
He's the guy that goes to the party and says, "Hey, I know how to French braid hair."
And
I think that's clever.
Caught a great interview with Vin Diesel finding out that he had the most unique script, in his opinion, for Guardians of the Galaxy. He was explaining it, or this is Nerdist did an interview with him. He's explaining that the script he had is divided in two. On this side is I am Groot. On this side is 50-some sentences of what he's actually saying. He had like a 50-page plus script of all of this. So here's the line you gotta say. Here's what you're saying.
But make it mean this.
Right. That's how they had him do it. He's like,
interesting.
Like, this is the most unique script I've ever been handed.
I've not even seen it yet. Melissa and I are going to see it next week.
Yeah, the daughters see it next week. I gotta figure out when I'm seeing it because they're doing it during the daytime while I'm at work, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it sounds like it's pretty decent. So.
Yeah, I'm excited. And Chris Plate said that, at least in the interview, who knows if it's true, but he says he stole some of the wardrobe because he said he wanted to be like one of those actors that go and see children in costume.
What?
So. So hey, look, here comes Star-Lord to visit you.
I'm pretty sure at random birthday parties is Star-Lord.
Well, would he do that though? Would Star-Lord just show up at random? Would that be canon?
How much do you charge to do these parties? Oh, I just show up.
Can I have a beer?
Cake. Also, a little bit of talk before the show. I think it was announced at one point that, oh, look, yeah, Wonder Woman is for sure going to be in Batman vs. Superman because they released a press picture. And Richard had opinions.
Gal Gadot. Oh, yeah, that was her name.
Richard, do you have opinions about this?
You
mean the glory that is the DC movie universe and how they never get anything wrong?
No, I don't have anything to say about the actress herself. I don't know anything about her. I haven't seen her in anything. They got her in a very dull monochromatic outfit, which just...
Well, I would argue that it might be just the lighting, but I can tell that there's a red hue and there's a goldish hue or a bronzish hue. And I don't know if that's supposed to be like a bluish hue or whatever. But it's it's like you can't cut. But I really like the design. The design is awesome. It doesn't have the skirt. It has like the leather, not like plaits or whatever. So it's like that's actually it's sort of like that. So it's somewhat. Makes sense. It's not panties for one, so that's still good. It still has the top design and everything. I think it's a very solid design.
Yeah, design-wise, I liked it. My worry is more towards how are they going to actually use the character in a movie that's being billed as a Superman-Batman movie, and oh, by the way, Wonder Woman shows up, but she's not in the title, and she's not. Yeah, she's not.
Kind of young.
Well. Yeah. So, she's an Amazonian. She can be young.
Yeah.
It's like semi-immortal. Like Thor.
As long as she's not shorter than the other two, because she's supposed to be an Amazon. She's supposed to be tall. But
I'm more worried what is the script going to be like, and are they going to... Just because DC doesn't exactly have a...
Well, here's the thing with DC. They kind of suck at movies, and so I'm not gonna go see it unless the reviews are good. Because I didn't bother seeing the last Superman movie because I didn't care, and the Superman movie before that I didn't care.
Hold your breath, then. I mean, I thought that one of the biggest problems with Man of Steel is that there was nothing restraining Zack. He's a director that needs to be held back a little bit. Otherwise, he has a tendency to go way off the deep end. And, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, Sucker Punch got fairly ridiculous in places. It did not get as ridiculously over-the-top destructive as Man of Steel did. And I suspect a lot of that was he had a smaller budget and less time to work in.
Mm-hmm.
And, here, we're making a Superman movie. Go nuts.
Well,
it's not that I have anything against Snyder. He's just, again, he's one of those directors that, for me, is like Tim Burton. He's got a certain kind of material that he does really well, but when he tries to go outside that box, he's less successful.
Yep.
Well, okay. I got a weird tangent, if I may.
You don't say.
So there's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie that's either out or coming out.
Oh, I got a great comment on that.
And while Michael Bay himself is not actually making the movie, he's producing it. He's getting a lot of flack for the character designs, which are ridiculous, because they have mammal mouths. Is basically what people are beefing on. And okay, maybe in the movie, maybe if they're mutated from humans into turtles, that makes sense, but not the other way. But anyway, it's like the nitpicky thing. But then I actually started seeing trailers where they actually showed a little bit more, and it looks like, oh, they're doing it's 90s turtles in 2010-ish, dark, realistic looking style. It's like, maybe. So I was like, I'm waiting for the reviews for that one because I like 90s Turtles. But, or was that 80s Turtles?
Yeah, somewhere.
I don't remember. When was the show? Was it 87 and so?
Yeah. Yeah, probably after 87.
Oh, well. It's still, it's like, I always like that.
After I graduated high school, so.
And if
I have to point out, and this is just kind of so delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Megan Fox put her foot in it, responding to some of the criticisms that the online community has had about Turtles. And this is apparently a quote where she said, "Let me tell you something about those people. How much money did Transformers 4 make? Those people can complain. They all go to the theater. They're going to love it. And if they don't love it, they can fuck off."
Well,
Clue train for Miss Fox, however. The fact that Transformers 4 made a shitload of money is evidence that people were not going to see Transformers because of Megan Fox.
Well, she wasn't in the third one, was she?
No.
No. But she came back for the fourth one, didn't she?
She couldn't stop running her mouth off about how awful Michael Bay was.
Well, he is awful. But did the fourth movie make more than the third movie in the box office?
I think so.
Then maybe people came back for Megan Fox.
Really? Because it didn't help Jennifer's body at all.
I don't fucking care. But are there fucking giant robots in Jennifer's body? You got the perfect storm.
I have to deconstruct that the wrong way. I don't want to know what giant robots are doing in her body personally. So
you're thinking about the manga called Kiss, which features Transformers that need to transform when they're kissed by a cute little girl that's a minor.
That requires me actually to have heard of that manga before you mentioned it.
Oh, okay. So, to come back around, now if they came out with...
Speaking of Dragon Ball Z hentai.
Speaking of Batman versus Superman...
What a time to walk in.
Welcome back, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
So, with all of that in mind, if for some reason, if DC and Warner Brothers is real genius, and they come out with opening weekend, it's not Batman versus Superman, and it turns out to be Super Friends, the movie, in realistic style, I will go see that immediately.
We can only hope.
Only hope, but, whatever. I'm not going to
As long as Geek's not in there.
No. I'd be going earlier than that.
All right.
I don't know. My fear is if that's the direction they tried to go in, it would be somebody saying, "Hey, I can do Josh Whedon too," and no, you can't. Do yourself. That was the whole problem with Superman Returns. It was Bryan Singer was so hell-bent on doing Richard Donner and Christopher Reeve Superman that he didn't do his own.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy, Marvin, and Wonder Dog.
If they go into this trying to do, well, it worked on the Avengers, let's do all the same things. Well, no, it's not going to work because you're starting with the wrong premise.
Right. It's now that goes back to there's a whole different feel essentially to these universes, and you have to kind of play to that. So, but if they want to redo the episode where Marvin and Wendy and Wonder Dog are in it, and there's the mouse that's inside the supercomputer causing it to go haywire, I think that'd be a wonderful film to do in gritty, realistic fashion.
Okay, but if you do that, I just want to see somebody slip an Electro Woman and Dr. Shrinker reference in there.
Different universe.
So?
I know. Well, the problem is, the graphic novels that came out, forgetting Kingdom Come, was it? Yeah, Kingdom Come, actually had Marvin show up drunk in a bar. As in, it's years later, Superman shows up at the bar to recruit other superheroes at Super Bar, and basically Marvin shoots his mouth off like, "Oh yeah, you're here now." And basically, it's this guy who's obviously his life is wasted now that he's past being a sidekick and everything. It was great. It was a nice little, great one-page cameo. So you could do Marvin in a nice, gritty way. So.
Moving on to the rest of comics here. I'm sorry I didn't have much with Fringe Festival going on and other excuses I could give. But Jenny Everywhere Day 2014 is coming up on August 13th. Jenny Everywhere is an open source character specifically designed and such, and is probably the most successful purposely created open source character. And created back in 2002 and 2013. You can find a whole bunch of information about her at theshifterarchive.com. But for the past several years, the Shifter Archive, which is I run that, and a friend of mine, Benj Christensen, have been putting together Jenny Everywhere Day, and he's mostly behind Jenny Everywhere Day, which is we mark as her birthday. And the idea is you get a bunch of artists to draw Jenny Everywhere, and we make a day of it, and it's pretty darn fun, because one of the best things about Jenny Everywhere is that she's also known as the Shifter, because she can shift between realities, thus potentially making everything that she has been in by anybody canon, or not, if you so choose to be. And a lot of people do like to play with the multiple universe sort of thing. I really love this character. She's probably my favorite superhero, and you can check out that more at JennyEverywhereDay.com and theshifterarchive.com. Notes will be in the show notes and links. And I have a Comic of the Week pick. I've started to move my Comic of the Week picks over to the Geek Life because it seems a little bit more fun that way. And I don't think I've picked this one before in the past of Comic of the Week, as far as on the Webcast Beacon Network, but it's called Mia Mosca at miamasca.com. It kind of follows this girl that goes, just like a typical everyday, and then suddenly she finds herself in another world or time or place. She doesn't know where the heck she is, and it's kind of like a couple other comics that I've read before, but this one does it very interestingly by looking a lot more at like the politics of when this happens, when these people from other worlds sort of just fall into ours. How do we have to deal with it? And then there's the underground and other aspects like that. So it's a different angle than I have seen. I really like the art style, and one of the catchiest things about when this comic places ads everywhere, they really focus on this character blinking her eyes, and it's kind of creepy, but it's also like, what the heck is that? I gotta click on it. What is that? So that's my Comic of the Week pick, Mia Mosca, miamasca.com.
I love it when they do the little animated GIF thing like that.
It's nice and subtle. It's not too annoying.
Yeah, you do it just right. It adds a little nice flavor to it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Let's see.
Tech.
Show notes. There we go. Tech. Oh, that's right. Well, riffing off 2 weeks ago, Samsung is doomed because they got to copy Apple in every way possible.
I know that Melissa disagrees with me on this fundamental concept, but
she's not here to.
Samsung didn't make crap.
Pardon?
If Samsung didn't make crap,
well,
maybe they could compete.
My
And this is
TV
what I
is doing
don't
well.
understand. They make very good components, like their SSDs and their chip manufacturing and that sort of
Well,
thing.
yeah, because they got all those specs from Apple.
But it's their finished goods are horrible.
Right. What this is referring to is the Samsung's earnings report came out, and their mobile market is taking a hit, 25% hit in profit compared to same quarter last year. I believe it was a quarterly comparison. I have double-checked the article. Essentially what's happened is their mobile market's finally taking the massive hit from all the other cheap Android phones out there, so like Huawei and the Chinese markets and all that. So where Samsung is well known for making a phone and or phablet and tablet in every single size conceivable, it's finally coming back and biting them in the butt in that everybody else who's trying to undercut them and make mass market phones is just doing that, and so they're taking a profit hit in it. Remembering that Samsung's actually a huge company, their other areas are doing okay. So making of TVs, making of components, as Richard pointed out, making of large industrial things that they do, those areas, they're really not doomed. But their mobile area, yeah, it's taking a hit. And this is just, I find it interesting because, oh no, Apple iPads aren't selling as well, and we might have hit the saturation point, and yada yada, therefore Apple is doomed, and yet this comes out, everybody's like, it's Samsung. Only the major competitor.
Yeah, well, I'd like to follow on with that because there was an interesting related story to that, which was specifically focusing on the Chinese market. Mm-hmm. Samsung's kind of tried to have it both ways. They've tried to have some high-end phones, and they've tried to have some low-end phones. And really where they're dying is in the low end, especially in China. There was a Wall Street Journal article that pointed out that their leading competitor now, Xiaomi, which I may be mispronouncing, their phones typically sell for around $100. Samsung's Galaxy smartphones are more than $5.
Yeah.
And John Gruber had a very interesting point on that yesterday, I believe it was, where he said, market share as a first priority generally doesn't end well. When you compete on quality, almost the best will often still do pretty well. When you compete on price, almost the cheapest always loses.
Yep.
And it's almost like we're seeing what happened in the laptop space or the computer space, only at a highly accelerated rate.
Yeah, as much as people want to gripe about Apple being too expensive, which I still view as a critique, like saying Ferrari is too expensive, then why didn't you just go buy the Honda to begin with? It's Apple's focusing on a specific market and a specific profit, and are purposely marketing as high end. You want our stuff because it's really shiny and neat. Samsung seems to kind of want to do that, but then simultaneously also still wants to focus on price and ends up, I think, undercutting themselves overall, as opposed to focusing on just the high-end Galaxy and explaining to me why the Galaxy is the high-end cool phone I want. Then there's all this other stuff they make, and it becomes it's kind of like ordering, which version of Windows operating system do you want? Which Samsung do I really want? There's 5 million of them. I'm really not sure. Do I want the 5-inch screen, the 5.5-inch screen, the 5 3/4-inch screen, or the 6-inch screen, or the 6 3/4-inch screen with less resolution?
Or perhaps just deciding you're going to conquer the low-end market.
Yeah.
Because they're an enormous company. They have incredible...
Yeah, and then focus on that and go for it.
But they're not going that route because they made the same mistake that Microsoft did. They got the Apple shine and thought that was the direction they had to go.
Yeah.
The problem is I don't think the world perceives Samsung as a high-end luxury brand. They just don't have that image.
Their image is always being sued for stealing apples. So it's like they're almost like, it's okay. So I got a question for the panel.
Buy the most sued phone possible.
So I know Melissa is an iPhone user. I am an Android user. What about you guys? Just the main operating system, not the type of phone you have, but
I am
the market.
iPhone. Now I will say that with the caveat that I have tried Windows Phone twice, and I've come away with the conclusion that Windows Phone is a great idea, marred by poor execution. I have been very happy with the various iOS devices I've owned over the years. I do have some minor quibbles, but for the price that I pay for them, they do what I expect them to do and do it reliably.
Yeah, I'm also iOS ecosystem.
Okay.
So,
Mike?
and Mike, I think, is...
I have a work phone.
That doesn't tell me anything.
He didn't pay for
It
it.
is an iOS device.
Okay. It's so mostly Apple market. I'm an Android market, and the question I was actually leading to is like, well, Apple obviously you got the iPhone. I mean, there's nothing else you're going to use. But for Android, I can tell you that eventually I decided to go with a Nexus.
Okay.
Because that's a Google phone.
Right.
And Google is Android. So in theory, this phone should always be working up to date with everything that they throw at it, right?
Maybe.
Right. See, that's the issue with Androids is all the and it's great.
All the versions.
Yeah, all the versions, all the phones. Anybody can play and it's too late to say what Google should have done because I have opinions on what they should have done, but they didn't, and so we have to deal with this. So I expect this to work pretty much with. I expect Google to update the Android software with their phones in mind at the very least. So I didn't want to have to worry about it anymore.
What I would suggest is if you want to go the Android route, the Nexus is the way to do it. And it's interesting because I've looked at the Samsung stuff and I've looked at the Nexus stuff. And I think this is one of the things that puts Samsung in a very difficult position because they don't own anything to do with the phones. They don't own the chips because they're ARM chips, so they have to license the design. They don't own the operating system because Google makes that. They own the crapware they put on top of it, which nobody seems to be especially fond of. People put up with it, but I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, I got to get a Samsung phone because I really want TouchWiz," or whatever they're calling it these days. The Nexus device, I had a Nexus tablet for a while, and it was solidly built, and it did the job for. It wasn't quite as performant as the iPads I've been using, but it was also a lot cheaper.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got a Nexus 7 for, I think it's a 7 for a Christmas present because I wanted a tablet, but I didn't want a like ridiculously priced one, and my parents got me this, so it was pretty awesome. But I mean, it's an Asus, so they work with Asus for that. The Google phone is an LG. And didn't Google buy another company or whatever to do their Made in America super high price because it's Made in America phone? But
they bought Motorola,
yeah,
and then they sold it again.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. It's like, but what is Windows Phone use? I mean, it's like they have to go up for.
There is actually a Windows Phone OS. Windows.
No. I meant the phone itself.
Mostly they're made by Nokia, which is now part of Microsoft.
Oh, okay.
They do have third-party, though. I mean, Samsung has made Windows phones on occasion, and one of those I owned is part of the reason I hate Samsung so much, because it bricked after 6 months, and the micro SD card never worked properly. But putting that aside, there have been a few third-party manufacturers here or there. There's a couple more that Microsoft signed this year, but they're these odd boutique Chinese companies that you've never heard of, and they're probably not going to market in the States anyway. So basically, if you're buying a Windows phone, you're buying Nokia, and their stuff is actually quite solid.
What's Nokia? I mean, it's got a great name. It's
It's
a brick that works.
Very good cameras. I mean, the Nokia 1020 has a 40-megapixel sensor on it, for God's sake. Not because it gives you 40-megapixel images at the end, but it gives you a lot of room for digital zoom or cropping or whatever without trashing the image to hell. And then if you want to go on the cheap side, they've got things like the 520, which are $100 off contract. So you just, for $100, you own the phone outright.
Yeah, I agree that Samsung is. I mean, if they did want to try to conquer all markets, they probably should have done something that Apple started doing with Apple iPhone cheap, and just like this is the and like make it 3 different brands. Here's the low, here's the mid, here's the high, and just like stick to something, not just change crap all up, because then it's oversaturated. They oversaturated themselves. It sounds like from what you're saying.
Well, I think there's some of that. I think part of it depends on your mindset. The thing that makes Apple appeal to a lot of people is that you have a very limited number of choices to make. So you want to go and buy a Mac. Your first decision is, am I buying a laptop or a desktop? Once you've done that, then the only real decision you have to make at that point is, how much do I spend?
Essentially.
A lot or a lot?
Well, I had to make this decision between, do I buy an iMac or do I buy a portable Mac? Well, I decided I wanted a laptop, and then it was, okay, do I get the MacBook Air or do I get the MacBook Pro? Well, I'll get the Air because I want it to be real light. Okay, last decision, 11 inches or 13 inches. But it's not like I got to go into a store and say, okay, I have to find out what the difference is between the Model Z 2021 and the Z 2030.
That's why I build my computers. But on that note, I'm very happy with my Lenovo ThinkPad.
Oh, Lenovo makes a decent machine, though. So.
Oh yeah.
I think Lenovo's the best player in the PC industry today. They're the only people that seem to be really trying to do something interesting, and they are being rewarded for it. Their ThinkPads and their Yogas, very well made, very price competitive, and you would not be embarrassed to take one into an office setting, unlike some of the HP and Dell stuff I've seen pumped out over the years.
So
let's move on with tech before we run out of time.
I already deleted one thing off of here. Just so we can keep Richard on a rant. So
as long as we got him.
Yeah. So your servers are in Ireland, and you're being sued by the U.S. government in America because they want data. What do you do? So essentially what this story is about is Microsoft has servers in Ireland. There is, I forget if it's a fraud, I'd have to double check what the lawsuit's over. It's essentially over fraud or something like that, where there's data for the people that the U.S. government's going after. The data is on the servers in Ireland, and Microsoft is saying, well, under European law, we can't hand this over unless you go get it cleared in Ireland. U.S. judge just ruled, you're a U.S. company, hand it over. It doesn't matter where the server is.
Very interesting. That's very interesting.
So the data is stored in a server.
Physically, not in this country.
Physically, yes.
But it is owned by Microsoft, which is a U.S. company, and the judge is claiming that that's good enough. And we can go abrogate European law because you're a U.S. company.
And there's two things that bother me about this.
Just two?
But go ahead.
Just two. I mean, I'm sure there'll be more if I think about it, but really, there's two primary issues here. And the first one is, as Paul mentioned, if the subject who created the data or sent or received the data, if that customer is an EU citizen, and specifically a citizen of Ireland, and they're using a service, granted, provided by an American company, but provided within European borders.
Yeah, I think technically it is a U.S. citizen that they're going after.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
that shouldn't matter.
Complicates that may complicate things a little bit, but it still comes down to the question of at what point can the United States just reach into another country's border and take whatever it wants?
Oh, whenever.
Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, whatever.
But
with good reason,
Well, and does this set precedents is the other thing, because now if you have an international company like Microsoft who has offices in, I don't know, let's pick somewhere random like Shanghai, And the government of China initiates a lawsuit against a Chinese citizen who has data on Microsoft servers in, let's say, Seattle. Don't they have the same right now?
That's the part that I'm worried about.
Yeah, and that's
sometimes I wonder if the judge in cases like this has really thought through where this decision is going to lead in the bigger picture.
And that's my worry too, because that's the two big things. Is number one, the judge is saying we can ignore other countries' laws, even though physically this stuff we can trace physically is somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So essentially, he's saying it doesn't matter anymore. If Microsoft owns a wallet and that wallet is not in the United States, we can still tell them to produce it on a search warrant as the equivalent of this.
It's
because it's not really in the cloud.
They can't do that normally, though. I mean, it's
right, but he's saying since it's digital data, even though you can say it's physically stored somewhere else, it's digital.
Doesn't matter. It's still that particular property is not on American soil.
Right.
It's therefore not in an American. It's the company owns or is renting that area, but the property belongs to that country.
Right, and that's my issue too. Is I think the judge, as Richard is alluding to, isn't thinking through the ramifications in trying to help the U.S. government get what they want. They're potentially causing a lot of ramifications for both how will be perceived in other countries and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And oddly, this dovetails into the next topic, which is if we start saying we can go off and steal stuff due to law, does that lead to our...
Okay, I just have two things to say
Go
about
ahead.
it.
Yep.
One, this will be appealed. I can almost guarantee
it already is, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well,
and two...
news.
Yeah, okay. And two, I came up with a solution like 10 seconds after I saw the article. It's very, very simple. Hand them the physical disk drive. Say, here you go. Oh, by the way, I DoD wiped it. If you can still get the data, there it is. The data is on that drive.
What are the rules of that, though? Like, in general now, it's like, I mean, if you get subpoenaed to turn over certain property or something like that, I mean, is it against the law for you to wipe it?
I think it would be treated as contempt.
Contempt or obstruction.
Unless you make it like, oh, the fail-safe went up. Who the heck was that? It was the freaking IRS. It was like, oh, all of our files were damaged. The ones that you conveniently needed for this lawsuit that's against us right now. It was something blah blah blah. You could always say, oh, it was like it's automatic thing.
Yeah, some of we didn't notice the permanent magnets mounted around the door to the server room. We're sorry.
Look, the data was on the drive when we handed it to you. You walked out the door with it.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Which, by the way, that's stealing right from a Neil Stephenson novel. But anyhow.
All right.
Cryptonomicon.
No, let's have a trade war then, shall we?
Yeah, let's have a trade war. Woohoo!
Yeah, there's three things that I think if you take and put in a blender, it makes for a very bleak-looking future.
Will it blend?
Do you remember, maybe it was a year and a half ago, but there was a lot of hue and cry coming from certain critters in the American government that perhaps we should not be buying networking equipment from companies like Huawei that were Chinese companies that are cozy with the Chinese government and the Chinese military. And just maybe they're selling us, and maybe they're selling us hardware that is already compromised.
And this had no reaction from the Chinese point of view against U.S. companies whatsoever.
Oh, absolutely not. At least until the NSA revelations came out, where we find out we were doing all the same crap that we were vaguely hinting that these Chinese agencies might be doing.
Where do you think we got the idea that they might be doing it from?
But what gets me about all this is now, with all the stuff that's come out with the NSA revelations, we've lost the moral high ground. Which, yes, I realize that assumes whoever had it in the first place, but at least you could pretend.
Well, it's all a public secret, you know. It's like the government's unless you're absolutely dense. all governments know that all governments are spying on each other.
Well, of course they are. We're
It's
spying
just
on our
duh.
friends.
It's
Germany
just duh, but
was protesting too much.
Yep.
Okay.
well,
Except-
Germany always has had an issue after World War II with the privacy of their citizens for some reason. I can't think of why.
Hitler. Sorry, I
Yeah.
had to say that.
We actually legitimately got wind of this podcast at this point with an actual, real, relevant reference. Thank you. Thank you.
But what's astounding about this is this tit for tat has slowly started to escalate. And so now we're seeing China has started an antitrust investigation against Microsoft. And the Chinese government, yeah, I mean, first of all, they're about 15 years late to the party.
I was about to say, are they going to demand that Internet Explorer be removed?
Yeah, I remember when they came crying to us for the 2000 thing, and nobody wanted to work with China because they didn't have any fucking legitimate copies to begin with. They care for us to care about.
Exactly. I found it funny that the Chinese government made a decision that Chinese government agencies could not purchase Windows 8, as if they were purchasing to begin with. But
Well, they didn't say they couldn't have them, just they couldn't purchase it.
Yeah,
it just,
follow the letter of the law.
well, yeah. But this is just starting to feel like one of those things where if you take what's happening and you kind of extrapolate it, because we're already at the point where almost all the hardware is being made in China anyway, and the Chinese companies have decided they're no longer content to just sit there building American designs. They want to make their own stuff for their own market. And the rationale we always heard for why we had to work with the Chinese government and the corruption with the Chinese companies is because we didn't want to get locked out of that market. And we might get locked out of that market anyway. I just, if something doesn't happen, this has this feeling that this could spiral into a trade war over the next several years. And that's not good. I think we would get hurt more than China will in that scenario.
Definitely. I think it was a big mistake to always go to China. Well, maybe not always, but it's like the whole technology boom they had there in the last 10 years. I think it was because companies were like, look at all this shit we got. China doesn't care. That's just like, here you go. Here, oh look, this is the iPhone schematics. And, they're probably reverse engineering everything.
I don't think they have to reverse engineer it.
Well,
we're contracting them to make it.
Well, yeah, but if you want to try to sell it outside of China, I mean.
Well, they don't care. They want to use it internally anyhow. I mean.
Yeah, so it's like.
And they're going to sell it to Russia. So.
Oh look, a USB firmware virus.
Speaking of which,
this is a fun one. So, yeah. Well, actually, it might not be as bad as some of the initial doom and gloom that came out, but a couple of guys who, by now I think they were at the Black Hat conference in question, but they have come up with a way to install malware on the firmware. I gotta try to get more buzzwords in there. Malware on your firmware. It sounds like apply to forehead.
You got your malware in my firmware.
You got your firmware.
My malware.
It tastes good. No, it doesn't. So anyhow, malware on the firmware of a USB drive. What this means is they have actually inserted, malware, a bad virusy thing on the firmware of a USB drive, so then it will infect any other USB controller. This isn't good. Because, number one, USB firmware is not signed. And what that means is it's a cryptographic thing, basically a way to make sure that the firmware is the firmware in question. Since it's not signed, your computer or device can go question the firmware and say, are you legit firmware? And, of course, it doesn't matter if it's effective or not. It's going to reply affirmative no matter what. So you can't tell. Number two, it's non-trivial to figure out if the firmware has been infected. It takes actually a lot of work. So it's not just something you can go gin up a simple virus scanner for. Once it's there, it looks too much like the native firmware. And here's the bad part. It starts out as a drive. If you have any other sort of USB device attached, it can infect that too. And then it can also spoof other devices. So you might insert a USB drive, but then the malware can pretend it's a Ethernet card or a keyboard or a variety of other things and intercept and or insert malicious signals as needed. And of course, since you have USB controlling firmware on your computer, it means your computer gets infected. And for the doomsday scenario, where this gets really fun, is let's say by accident you have a USB device that's infected. You're a road warrior and you're traveling somewhere and you go to one of those nice little useful stations that some of the big airports have that allow you to do USB charging, which of course all has USB firmware on it. And you charge. And then other people plug into that, and then they charge somewhere else, and they plug into other stuff. And at some point we now have the essentially zombie apocalypse of USB.
Well, you know, this is why you got to be careful what you plug your USB stick into, because you're also plugging it into everything else, and every
Exactly.
USB stick has, you see.
The USB condom.
Yeah. Actually, I have to say I agree with John Dvorak's solution to this whole problem.
Yep.
Go back to CDR.
Now the good news is it turns out this isn't as apocalyptic as it first sounds. That it's not quite as easy to get the malware on there, and that since there's different versions of firmware, you're not guaranteed you're going to get universal infection as some people were predicting. But
Yeah.
still, it means you have to trust the company that you go get it out of the package from, and then you can only plug it into your stuff because and this isn't in the wild yet as far as we know, but
it shows the typical short-sighted thinking that's very common in this scenario.
Yep.
And this is why I'm petrified of the Internet of Things.
Yep.
This is why I don't want smart appliances and toasters and irons and cars, for that matter.
right.
Because every time somebody comes out with this, it's exactly this scenario. There's no security whatsoever. The device just stupidly accepts whatever you tell it to do.
Yep.
And it would make sense if that was the case while it was on the assembly line. But you would hope, like, when they put it in the package, you flip the bit that says this is now ROM,
Yep.
and you're not going to update. Because that's the only reason you do that.
Right, and that goes into there's some firmware out there you can't update because of the version it is or whatever. But still, it becomes an interesting danger. And again, as far as we know, this isn't in the wild unless the NSA, as was being jokingly mentioned, unless the NSA has already done this. But if you want real doomsday scary stuff, there's USB devices like this one I'm holding, and this is a Bluetooth LE dongle. So with the proper malware infection, have Bluetooth.
Fun.
Yeah, I mean, let's just go everywhere.
Damn it, I'm going back to cables, I'm going back to CDR, and I'm going
Semaphore.
back to cache.
Yes,
Cache, man.
Okay, sorry, I thought you had a question, Fess.
No.
No.
I was going to say, I'm already on cables now for all my computers just because, I turned on a Wi-Fi scanner to try and figure out why I was getting a really crappy signal and went, 23.
23 networks in your area?
Yeah,
Jesus.
in immediate scanning range of my
And how
town.
many of them are called Xfinity Home?
Actually none.
Wow.
A couple of Quest, a couple of them, and they're all locked down.
But still.
But yeah,
They're polluting your
And
band.
they're all on the same channel, aren't they?
No, they're all grouped in like the three major ones that would like not cross, do with any of the others, but there's a group on channel 1, there's a group on channel 9, there's a group on channel 13 or 14.
I'd run a wireless network, but first I have to do it inside this Faraday cage.
Pretty much, yeah.
I had to. I ended up. Okay, so I have Comcast, and
Sorry.
I bought my own. No, I need the speed. I bought the modem because I'm not going to rent that out if I can help it. But okay, so there's two kinds: a wired and a wireless. Now, the geniuses that designed this probably were assholes, because that's the only way that this makes sense, that the wireless has 4 hardline ports, and the wired one has 1 hardline port. Now, go figure why that makes sense.
So you get the wired one, then you hook it up to the, then you just get a wireless router, and
No, you don't do that, because every time you do that, you degrade the signal. You do not want to hook, and you want to hook up as little as possible to that thing. If you have a router, in addition, hooked up to your Comcast modem, you're already gonna, especially if you have a non-wireless router, and then connect that to a wireless router. Yeah, you're gonna get screwed on the speed. It doesn't work, and it starts to chug with your system. So I went to go get the 4-port wireless one, and well, it's fine, but I mean, Melissa has an airport, so we don't really need the wireless feature on it. But I don't know where I was going with this.
Still.
Comcast, I hate you. There.
And it probably has a USB port for a printer.
Moving on, please.
Or it has a USB port for updates.
Is this next one irony or just coincidence?
I'm not sure. I saw it and laughed my ass off. So.
Yes.
So, I'll talk about it. The George Harrison Memorial Tree in Los Angeles was killed on July 22nd.
Damn you, Hinckley.
by an infestation of beetles.
All you need is wood.
Yeah. They will be replanting it, but yeah, I just saw, George Harrison Memorial Tree killed by beetles.
Not by Yoko Ono.
No. But by actual beetles.
Look, Paul, John, take it somewhere else, please.
Well, maybe if it was a new species of beetle, they could name it Yoko. The Yoko beetle.
Although they keep saying beetles and stuff, I'm just wondering if they're actually Japanese beetles, because those are really nasty on plants.
Could be. Depends. Well.
But yeah,
I think we've come to peaks.
Yeah.
Peaks.
Melissa's not here, but she told me to plug the Fringe Festival, particularly her PowerPoint Karaoke Fringe Festival. At Fringe Festival, this let's see here, Friday at 5:30 p.m. and Saturday at 7 p.m. Let's go see them. FringeFestival.org. Do it now.
Do it.
I got nothing. Mike?
I had the George Harrison tree.
Rich?
Alrighty. Before I do my real peak, I sat down last night with my wife and son, and we watched Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Aw.
That film holds up very well.
Cool.
Over the years.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's one of mine too.
Top 10 of mine.
And I think one of the things that works with that film is it's very well paced. It has a very good balance of humor and pathos. And I find that film to be fairly impressive because you have to remember that that was made while computer graphics were still in their infancy. So a lot of the stunt work and all the car chases, and there's 2 big marquee car chases in that movie, were all done practical.
Yep.
They weren't CG. And that just kind of appeals to me. It's like going back and watching the Hong Kong fight movies from the 80s before they had computers to do a lot of the stuff. I just find the stunt work more impressive. As far as peaks, I've got a book that I'll throw out, and it's right here. It's called Game. It's by the Swedish guy named Anders Delamop. This is the first book of course, it's a trilogy. But I got through all 3 books within the space of 2 weeks, and came to the conclusion that this would make a great mini-series on AMC if they ever decided to go that route. The first book starts with a character by the name of Henrik Peterson, who's a complete waste of space. On the train one day, finds an abandoned cell phone, and when he turns it on, he gets a message that says, "Do you want to play a game?" This isn't Saw, but as the game progresses, at first he's doing these fairly dumb, innocuous things, stealing an umbrella from a guy on the train or tagging a building or something like that. But as it progresses, the tasks get more and more dangerous and more violent. And this eventually dovetails to a conclusion, and then in the sequel, it picks up with the same character, but the second book doesn't seem to have anything to do with the game that he played in the first book. And then you get to the third book, and suddenly everything starts tying together, which was, I thought, fairly neat, because I was spending a lot of time just trying to guess how all this stuff was going to come together and resolve. So you kind of got to treat the three books as more like they're one large book, and there's an overarching narrative to it.
That's usually how a trilogy of books works.
Yeah, if you like, political thrillers or technology thrillers, this is kind of like this is in that vein. The prose is not necessarily all that impressive. I don't know how much of that is the writing and how much of that is the translation. But it's well paced and it moves quickly. And like I said, it would make a good 13 episode thing on a cable TV one year. That's what I got.
Cool.
And something I've seen this guy around before, 331E-Rock on YouTube. He does metal versions of everything. And so one I just sort of, because I was particularly looking for him because he has one where a video where he plays all the different types of metal guitar on his guitar, several different types, in the same video, and it's pretty interesting. It's, oh, I didn't realize there was a difference. But he has some. Let me go to his page here at 331E-Rock. Let's see here. Here's MacGyver meets metal, Skrillex meets metal, Ghostbusters meets metal. Sailor Moon meets metal, Let It Go from Frozen meets metal, and there's playlists. Oh God, there's playlists.
Of course.
And it's wonderful. And I basically I found the Let It Go one and I played it and I walked over to Melissa in the other room and I was just kind of waiting for her to pick up what it was. And it's actually really, really good. And then I sent her the link, and then she went on and found Thundercats meets metal, and she just was losing it and just everything. So that's a peek.
Cool.
Well, this has been The Geek Life. You can find us on the web at thegeeklife.tv, email thegeeklifetv@gmail.com. You can leave us a voicemail at 612-567-6515. We're on Facebook as The Geek Life. We're on Twitter as @TheGeekLifeTV. And we're on Google Plus as The Geek Life Podcast. We will see you again in 2 weeks. This has been Paul and Richard.
Bye-bye.
And Fess.
Bye.
And Mike.
Later.
Adios.